Madam President, thank you, Senator Eichhorn, for the work you've done on this bill also, and thank you for all my colleagues who have supported this. Members, Senator Eichhorn said just about everything that needed to be said here, and the issue is about a sulfate standard that is in rule that was promulgated in 1973 based on old science from 1930s and 40s that we are not sure has ever been proved to be accurate. And on top of it, this standard has not been applied since 1973 to any water discharge permits. This argument would be much different if we were standing here saying we want to take 10 standards for wild rice out of permits because it's not making a difference. It's not in any permit. It's not being applied to any permit. And the fact of the matter is that if we do suddenly apply this to permits for especially mining companies or wastewater treatment plants for our towns, breweries would be another place where they would have a big problem with it, paper mills, any of these kind of things that have water discharges to wild rice stands, potentially could cost millions, if not billions of dollars to the people who need to install these particular systems. The only acceptable treatment that could get wild rice down, or the sulfate emissions down to 10, is reverse osmosis. And reverse osmosis is extremely expensive. The city of Indianapolis actually installed reverse osmosis in their wastewater treatment systems, and it cost an average of $160 per month of people's water bills to go up. And this is the kind of cost we have. Now, we have absolutely no proof and no ability to say whether or not the 10 standard would make a difference in the wild rice production or not. So the DNR did a very comprehensive study on wild rice, and one of the main conclusions that they came to was that the biggest factors that make a difference in the growth of wild rice is whether or not the water levels are too high or too low, or whether there's competing vegetation against the wild rice, and also sometimes the climate makes a difference depending upon the temperature. And so if those factors are not exactly right, it's possible that wild rice doesn't grow. But the sulfate number is all over the board because we have wild rice stands growing very, very abundantly in 800 to 1,000 parts per million of sulfate. So, members, what we're trying to do here is to bring some common sense back into the game, and let's not say we're going to implement a standard, make people pay hundreds of millions of dollars to implement the treatment systems, and then find out that maybe it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. The DNR declared a bumper crop of wild rice this year. Now, to me, that means the wild rice is growing. We've been mining for 135 years on the Iron Range, and wild rice has grown the entire time, has been harvested the entire time. And so for us to suddenly say that if we don't have a standard it's going to harm wild rice is simply inaccurate. And so therefore, members, what we want to do here is let's go back to home plate and start all over again and try and go through if we have to go through the rulemaking process again, let's go through it. Let's see what we can actually find out will make a difference and whether or not there is a way to do this. But as of right now, we don't know if we spend billions of dollars to implement wastewater treatment systems that get the sulfate standard down to 10, whether or not it will make a difference. And that's the folly of the whole thing, which is why I want to go back to the beginning. As you all know, the MPCA has decided to not go ahead further with their wild rice rulemaking. And one of the comments they made was recent findings by an administrative law judge and the ongoing expressions of concerns from all sides led the agency to reevaluate their plans. And that makes sense. And members, that's why we should eliminate this rule now and go back to the drawing board and figure out how to do it better. And with that, Madam President, I'll yield back to Senator Eichhorn.